Yeah, no, we made it.
That's what I'm.
Especially when is it's too late, we'll do it next time. Sorry, Kay, getting done. Okay, we had an executive session just prior to this, so I need to read a statement about that and then we'll get started. The time is now 7:02 PM and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were myself, Mayor Holly Rogan, Mayor Pro Tem Paula Williams, Trustee David Hammer, Trustee Greg Lowell, Trustee Tanya Dottie, Trustee Lee Williams, Trustee Mark Browning, Director Aaron Kaplan, Attorney Brandon Dittman, Administrator Victoria Simonson, Town Clerk Dolores Vasquez, and Planner Lisa Ritchie. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I ask that you state your concerns for the record. And we will get going with our regular meeting. We had roll call and pledge of allegiance earlier. So we'll move into land acknowledgement and a reflective moment of silence. We must acknowledge with respect as non-native people that the land on which we stand, live, and learn is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. Thank you, everyone. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Okay, so I'll vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, so now is the time for our audience business. If you are here to address the board, come on up and state your name and address for the record. The clerk will call your name if you've signed in. You'll have 4 minutes and we ask that you address all your comments to the entire board and not one person. And that you keep the content related to town matters. And then after everybody has had an opportunity to speak, the board will respond one by one and then staff will also have the opportunity to respond. Okay. Thank you for being here. All right, who do we have?
First, we have Elizabeth Leonard, followed by Kay Sparks.
Great. Evening.
Hi. So I'm usually talking to second graders. I'm a little nervous about this. Yes, I know. So my name is Elizabeth Leonard and I'm a resident of Lyons Valley Park at 347 McConnell Drive. So I appreciate the opportunity to address you today regarding my issue, which has been affecting the quality of life in our community and in my neighborhood in particular, which is excessive noise for ongoing construction. For the past 12 days, there's been continuous loud jackhammering occurring during near my house as part of the construction of a new foundation. The noise has been occurring daily past sunset, but within the hours allowed by the current code from 7 AM until 7 PM. It's not a minor inconvenience. It's affecting the ability to work from home, to relax and generally enjoy the beautiful fall weather that we're so lucky to have. I understand that construction is a necessary part of a growing town, and I'm not complaining about building of new homes or construction overall. However, I believe we need a better balance between supporting the contractor and ensuring the noise generated by construction doesn't unduly disrupt our residential daily life. The current noise levels and frequency of this type of construction are a lot to ask residents to tolerate 7 days a week. The Lyons noise ordinance prohibits unreasonable noise over 55 decibels measured at the property line for private property. While standing in my backyard and using a small app on my phone, the noise from the construction site was consistently between 75 and 85 decibels. The constant disruption has made it hard to concentrate even inside my home and near impossible to be outside of our home. It feels like there's no reprieve. My request tonight is twofold. One is that I recommend shortening the allowable hours for construction noise, particularly high impact activities like jackhammering. A possible solution could be defining construction noise between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. on weekdays with no high impact construction noise allowed on the weekends. This would give residents a break from noise during their off time and would help restore some balance between supporting construction and the quality of our residential experience. I'm asking the BOT to consider revising the current code, which I know can take time. And in the meantime, please consider placing a moratorium on high impact construction noise for upcoming weekends until any changes can be implemented. These proposed changes would make a significant difference in how we experience living in this town, especially for those of us living near an active construction site. I appreciate your time and consideration, and I really hope we can work together to find a solution.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
A Sparks, followed by Gil Sparks.
Evening. Hey, Sparks, 2169 Apple Valley Road. Two things from the Housing and Human Services Commission. You know that the Get Help guide is already on your site, our site. It has been available electronically, and now it's available in print. A few copies, the library, I believe there's one or two at Town Hall. If not, we'll get them to you. And we hope to get some more to Lee, so that's available. And we're gonna try to keep it current, which is probably an impossible dream, but we will work at it. Second of all, December 3rd is going to be a health insurance enrollment event. We had one last year that was quite successful. And so we will have another one December 3rd from 4 to 7 at the library. We're partnering with them. And hope to have also a DHS representative there, which was very helpful last year for folks who were fearful about what was happening to their disability when they get on Medicare and all sorts of things that I have no knowledge about, that this person did. So, thank you much.
Thank you.
Mr. Gil Sparks.
Good evening, trustees. Gil Sparks, 2169 Apple Valley Road. I'm coming tonight to you for a Lions Community Foundation update, and I have 3 or 4 distinct things I'd like to share. First of all, in the good news category, if you know her, Kate Schnepnel has agreed to step back onto the Lions Community Foundation board. But more importantly, at least in my view, is she stepping back on to step into my role at the end of the first quarter next year. So just something to give you a heads up there. I'm hope to get her here and indoctrinated into providing information for you all, Lions Community Foundation. Our annual appeal will be kicking off next week. We have garnered matching donors at neighborhood of $25,000 to start off the campaign. There's a very strong start. So we're very optimistic. We'll run it through the end of the year and hope we have a lot of participation. Please share it with your friends and neighbors. The other announcement I want to share with you is we've been working for a number of months on looking at our relationship with Boulder County Community Foundation. We have elected to switch fiscal sponsors, and we will be going with Longmont Community Foundation. This will prospectively lower our administrative fees by about half, $6,000 to $7,000 a year savings. It will increase the flexibility of being able to start scholarships and grants at lower entry points. And hopefully we will have a much more flexible relationship. That will be, it's going to be effective at the end of the year, but it's already in motion. And that's why I'm making it public tonight, so you know it. It's out there and it's in motion. You come across folks that want to know more, please send them my way. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anyone else like to address the board? Okay, we'll close audience business and trustee Williams, would you like to respond? Trustee Browning?
In response to Ms. Leonard's, issues, I'm looking for the section of the town code, construction noise.
If it's 7 to 7, 7 days a week.
Is that what it is?
It's not under the noise.
It's not under the.
It's under
Health,
nuisance.
yeah.
It's under nuisance. I do think we probably ought to, because I think the noise ordinance, other revisions are still pending. I do think we ought to take a look at that. I think 7 or 8 years too early. I think we could adjust the hours and probably not so much. I think that's something we should look into at the same time we look into the other ending aspects of the noise ordinance.
I was not aware that it was 7 to 7. I don't like that. So I'm with trustee Browning, feeling like that'd be something I'd like to see as a future agenda item. For us to take a look at, amending the code on that to 8 and. Not sure about the PM. But also with weekend, restrictions. That's personally, I'd like to see that. I was not aware of that. Thank you for making this.
And I agree, I'd like to, take a look at that too. So we'll gear that up for a future agenda. Thank you for letting us know. I imagine that I can only imagine how disturbing that would be on a daily basis. Gil, I hope you continue to come to every single board meeting. We trust that you will.
I enjoy them immensely.
I know you do.
Most of the time.
I know you do. Trustee Earl?
Yeah, I can sympathize with Elizabeth. This is especially egregious. We're talking about the lots that are remaining on McConnell that literally have to be carved into the bedrock.
Yeah.
So for 10 of the 12 days that she mentioned, it's been a constant jackhammer on the edge of the excavator constantly. And it's just not gonna stop with one house they're building. I figure at least 5 of the 7 remaining lots, it's gonna happen again. Because they all are gonna have to be carved out of that bedrock there. So I think it's worth considering. I don't know whether a moratorium would work. I honestly think it's more of a courtesy thing with the contractor. I know they are up against it. They ran into that ledge. They should have known it was there. Maybe there can be some communication with the contractor because I was really surprised. It goes constantly 7 days a week, right through the weekend. So we're gonna work on it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming, Elizabeth. I know you've put in a full day at school and I can only imagine how difficult it is being sleep deprived. So I appreciate you showing up tonight and informing us because for those of us who don't live on Lions Valley Park, we're not aware of this taking place every single day of the week, all day long. I had not realized that either. But I hadn't realized that it wasn't part of the noise ordinance. I hadn't realized it was a nuisance ordinance. So I agree that there should be a future agenda item and I don't know if there's a way to put a limit on construction noise on the weekends for now until we get there. I imagine that would bring you some relief now. I'm not sure how we would go about that, but I definitely think we need to look at this soon. The problem is if we put it as a future agenda item, then we have to wait till November 17th. And I feel like that's 2 weeks out and you're probably thinking that's interminable. So if there's a way to limit that noise on the weekends, by putting a moratorium on the weekends, that's possible.
We can't do that tonight, it's not.
No, so it has to wait for 2 weeks. Kay, thank you for your continued work with the Housing and Human Services Commission, and Gil, I can't remember how many years you've been chair at this point. Has it been 3 or 4? Been a while.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your service and thank you for finding a successor. Those are big shoes to fill and I applaud the decision to move to Longmont Community Commission.
Thank you.
Thanks for your service.
Trustee Hamrick?
Yeah, back to the noise, I wasn't aware either. Understand your pain, and I think us doing anything at the board level, it's gonna take time, unfortunately. So I don't know if there's something the town or other means can apply. I think if somebody mentioned just having a conversation with the contractor. I think it's worthwhile trying that, because I think your request is reasonable from 9 to 5 and weekdays, and that, it seems to me, give them enough time to be able to jackhammer and focus on that, but, I think if the town staff can open up dialogue with the developer, I think it'd behoove us, especially if there's other developments to come shortly, so, just to set the expectation. Because otherwise, if we try to do something up here, it's gonna take till another meeting and it'll probably be finished by then, and you'll be living in a hotel maybe. No, I'm just kidding, so.
Also, we've been working on our noise ordinance for quite some time, we're in the middle of it. But we'll get a report on that in a few weeks, we will be changing that. Enforcing it currently has proven to be extremely difficult. For us to do, which is part of why we're changing it, so not ignoring that part of what you said, we're just in the middle of the process.
Thank you.
Administrator Simonson?
Yeah, I do live in your neighborhood, but I get to escape from 8 to 5 or 8 to 10. So I'm escaping your noise. I'm happy to look into it. I'm also happy to call both the contractor and the owner, because it's no longer a developer, it's an owner now who has hired that contractor. And so I can make that request to both of them. Especially for the weekends for now. Right now it's getting dark by, I would. Now with time change, did they stop today when it got dark?
I wasn't home yet.
Okay, so my guess
No,
is,
they must not have, because I got home, dark is 4:37 today, and I got home and it was still happening. I got home after that.
That's the sunset, so it's probably by 5.
Okay.
They were. So, I can ask, would you be willing to stop with the jackhammering at dusk? And take a break on the weekends? Right now we can't enforce it, as you guys know, because it is in the ordinance. We can certainly ask. I know they're trying to get ahead of the clock, trying to get a foundation in before winter so they can work inside the house, but I do think you're going to go through this many times. It's not, so even if it doesn't get changed for 2 weeks, it might help with future houses. The other thing we discovered when we were looking into this was that we don't have any type of permit for like jackhammering. And I think that the developer is now looking at, should the next lots be a blasting instead? And that comes with its own challenges. Years past when we've done that, we've had neighbors complain that things have gotten broken in their homes. So you kind of have to pick. And that's a tough one, but I do think they're gonna take a look. I don't think, in talking with another developer who has experience developing up on First and Second Avenue. He was saying the equipment they're using is very undersized for this type of work. And it probably could have been done much faster had he used bigger equipment. But again, we don't regulate any of that.
No.
So we might want to take a look at, last couple years ago, we increased our fees for blasting because of that situation. And the amount of time it takes to make sure they're doing it correctly. But in this case too, should there be anyone overseeing when someone is excavating into the earth that hasn't been touched in thousands of years, Right now, there's no permit needed at all. So something to keep in mind, but I'm happy to call the contractor and the owner.
Two now. So Chief Chatfield's got a hammer also, and he's got a hammer.
Oh, yeah.
So 2 projects.
And so, I'm happy to at least call and ask in the meantime, but you are going to have your noise, survey on November 17th. So if you are ready that night to start having us work on an ordinance change, we can get that done. Or we could bring this separate since it's really not under noise. We could just bring forward this section of the code next time, first reading, second reading, December 1st. Which may be worth it, knowing there's several lots.
Yeah.
And here's the first
Yeah,
reading.
there's different considerations here because the noise ordinance on music, there's a new Supreme Court case in our authority to
Yeah.
act is in question.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any question about our authority to
So,
act here.
so if it's the will of the board, I'm happy to draft up an ordinance that would just change the hours for this type of construction activity, not noise in
the
general.
hours and days.
And then it would be hours and days and, bring that forward for first reading and see where it goes next week
Yeah.
or next meeting.
I just wanna add, construction, regular construction.
Yeah.
Banging nails, putting up the framing point, that's really not an issue. The issue here is the difficulty of the excavation and the noise that it's producing.
Yeah,
So I don't know how you would write that into
well,
any sort of an ordinance. You don't wanna shut off them completely if they have to work on weekends to finish buttoning up a project. I don't,
we can make it apply to certain activities only and
okay.
staff will bring us a proposal and.
But I think that's the more expeditious way to do this. We should have it in place.
Louisville's ordinance had a distinction between
Higher.
activity occurring on the outside of a property, but once a property is walled, you can work 24 hours a day once it's, kind of enclosed. So I think there's some options and you can certainly differentiate between hours and holidays and weekends and things like that. So,
Okay.
And while we're looking at it, do we have a limit on time limit, day limit on blasting?
Dolores.
Well, that's a whole separate thing. They have to submit, they can, what we've learned, especially through Summit, it's a whole thing. They have to notify the neighbors. We have to have a call list for the fire department for this and that. And they would put, we're gonna blast Monday between 2 and 4, and then it would snow. And they couldn't get it. So what we've done is open that window a little bit for them for the blasting permit. We'll do like November 7th through the 14th, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday between 2 and 6, and they will notify the neighbors. So it may not happen Monday, but they're already noticed for Wednesday.
That's not in an ordinance anymore, or is it?
No, it's just
I
a,
remember they blasted the last light at the end of
Yeah.
our street.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
It's policy.
we might should look at the same day and time constraints on blasting, to just have outside parameters.
well, there are some constraints in the code that says it can't be after 4, there's some.
Yeah,
hour
maybe
constraints for
what we do is we have staff come back to us with the draft ordinance and any other recommendations regarding blasting along the same lines.
Blasting and hammering.
Yeah, so that,
But blasting is also very different. There's not a boom, it's more like a burp. Yeah.
okay.
Shake
still have to-
rattle and roll.
All right, okay, thank you, everybody. Did you have anything else?
No.
Okay, great. So then let's move into staff reports. I understand we don't have a sheriff with us tonight. Do we have a report?
No, Sergeant Krista's, on time off or paid time, vacation, and Sergeant McKim has to work here well, she's on duty now. So, neither was available for tonight and I did not get a ring.
Okay, then let's move on to the administrator's report.
Okay, in your administrator's report that was in your packet, there was several parks and public works updates. The engineering project updates that are probably most pertinent right now is the Laverne Johnson Stream Bank is going really well. That the progress on remediating that, as they near completion on adding the new stone, to the stream bank. It'll be followed now by landscaping and it's right on schedule with where it should be. Good news is our design proposals for safe routes to school, which is the sidewalks around the elementary school, and design of the 3rd Avenue stormwater, were due last week. We had 15 proposals submitted. So that's awesome to see that and hopefully have them be very competitive. We do plan to bring both of those back to you November 17th for award. So we should be awarding the sidewalks and Third Avenue Stormwater Design. And then right behind that in November, hopefully we'll be bringing Second Avenue with our loan application. The Ewald Electric Conduit Installation and Water Line Project. We put a pretty detailed update in there. Kind of hard to get a roundup in that neighborhood if you've been in that area. But we're staying in very close proximity of communicating with owners, with door knockers, as well as they've kind of started their own listserv up in that neighborhood. So we're getting timely information. I do just want to let people know if for whatever reason you're expecting a delivery and it can't make it, we have a makeshift, the FedEx, UPS and Amazon will deliver it here to Town Hall. And so if you're looking for a package and it didn't arrive, call Town Hall, we might have it here. So trying to work with that the best we can. It's a new challenge we haven't had years past. The construction at the October-November whole parking lot is going along very nicely and are expecting that to finish up here in the next couple weeks. And let's see what, the ADA curb ramp was supposed to start today. Did it?
Don't know.
You didn't see it? We've heard from CDOT that they will be starting with the curb at US 36 and Eagle Canyon Circle, and then moving up to 36 and High Street, and then 5th and Main. And my guess is that's all the further they'll probably get here in the next couple of weeks. So those are the areas most impacted. They are working from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. and there may be single lane closures happening with that. Lisa put a little write-up in here about short-term rentals. There was a discussion, and so we put the current code in there. So if the board says you want to talk about this as a separate item, we sure can. In regard to water rights dedication, there was a deadline of October 31st for both Mr. Chatfield and Wickstrom Builders to pay their cash in lieu for their second water share. They both did make that payment. So when I wrote my report, only one had been in, but they both came in before the deadline. So those are there. We do want to let people know this was kind of somewhat last minute, but this Saturday, November 8th, the Sustainable Futures Commission is going to host a yard waste drop-off out at the Public Works facility. They are accepting only yard waste, pumpkins. There was another one. Yard waste, pumpkins. I guess that's it, leaves, grass, and pumpkins. If you want to get rid of those and not have to make a trip, they'll take them out here at our Public Works building this Saturday, 8 to noon. The variable message sign, I don't know if you guys have seen that out and about. It can be moved around. So if you have requests from your neighborhoods, please let me know and we can move that. Quite shockingly, it was out for about 6 hours. And Kim came in, the data we can read online is amazing now. And this is in a 20-mile-an-hour school zone. And this was the whole day. The average was 23, which is awesome. But within the first 6 hours, the average was 36. They booked one person, what was it? 52 miles an hour going to McConnell. Yes, on McConnell. So if the latest data is now for a 14-hour period, it looks like they're getting the message. So that's good. That's great. Kim wants to be sure to let you guys know that we have our calendars full now for the holiday artisan market and parade of lights, December 5th and 6th. This year, the tree lighting will not be Friday after Thanksgiving, but it's going to be Friday, December 5th. There'll be tree lighting, choirs, caroling and choirs, and then there's going to be a small drone show that you'll be able to see all over town. You do not have to go to Bone Park to see it. And then again on the 6th, after the Parade of Lights, there'll be another drone show, all sponsored by the St. Vrain Innovation Center. So we're hoping people will enjoy that this year. And again, holiday, the artisan market at the elementary school, 10 to 4, both Saturday and Sunday, which is always very popular. I think that is it, unless you have questions for me.
Any questions for Minister Simonson?
I have a couple. So, I've seen a lot of questions on, social media regarding when Laverne Johnson will be open fully. So can you remind us of the timeline again, of when we think that work will be complete?
I think it should be complete by the end of November, but once they get, they are supposed to have a moving, as they move like away from the playground area and over to the south side, then the playground should open, but then they'll have to come back to do the landscaping.
Oh, so end of November doesn't include the landscaping?
No, then it does.
It does, okay, okay. And I just want to clarify, you said that the drone shows were sponsored by St. Mary Valley School District.
I'm sorry, they're, what's the right word? They're performing it.
Okay,
We are hiring them like we would
Okay.
when we used to do fireworks.
Okay.
And I think that was that an LCF grant? Yeah, to help us with those drones.
okay, great. And I really love the idea of moving the tree lighting to that same weekend. I'm hoping there'll be a lot more participation.
It was big last year. We had.
Yeah, wasn't it? And last year was only our second year, I think.
Mhm.
I just know a lot of people are gone for that Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
So I think this is exciting.
Great. Anyone else?
And you will see them putting up holiday lights starting this week. I know it feels early, but they have to get through everything by the day after Thanksgiving.
Great, the earlier the better.
Okay, all year long.
Okay, I would love that. Okay, thank you. Is there a legal update, Attorney Dittman?
Nothing further. You're gonna have plenty for me later today, so.
Okie dokie then. We will move on to ordinances and public hearings. And first up, we have the second reading and public hearing of ordinance 1199. An ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, removing sections 13.350, 13.3.110, and 13.3.120, and amending section 13.380 of the Lyons Municipal Code, modifying the language regarding water rates. Is there a staff report?
Mayor and trustees, you may remember that this was an ordinance that was brought about in the beginning. There was discussion on why the Lyons Fire Protection District had a separate paragraph in the municipal code setting their rate. And after discussion with the Utility Engineering Board, it was brought forward to move them to the non-residential rate, and other special districts, if they don't have an agreement, other non-business, non-residential can still fall into that non-residential category. It also moves to remove a lot of the language that was set a number of years back before the town had water meters in place. To require water meters to be put in place, it had a lot of language around the rates and the structure and the process for getting those water meters in. That's no longer necessary, and so we were looking at cleaning up the code to remove that.
Thank you. Are there questions for staff? Okay, then I will open the public hearing for ordinance 1199. Anybody in the room like to speak to this ordinance? Okay. And I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1199 on second reading, and ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, removing section 13-3-50, 13-3-110, and 13-3-120, and amending section the Lyons Municipal Code, modifying the language regarding water rates.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion?
I do actually have a question for staff. That's still appropriate.
Sure.
Is there any understanding with the fire district about what uses will be made of the hydrant at the station or the water which is metered to the structure of the station?
No discussion on change of uses. We were advised last year on a number of uses that they have, that washing of the trucks, other things are used through the metered water, and that the hydrant was only used when needed for the testing purposes. And we are still in discussion with developing a tracking program for the hydrant uses, whether they be the hydrant there or other hydrants. But that was not anything with the water rates structure.
And when you say testing, you mean training?
Training, sorry, yes.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Any discussion?
My only suggestion would be that, and this doesn't have to be inculcated in the code, but maybe as part of the discussions, that you also consider the third category of filling trucks. So filling trucks doesn't necessarily have to be done at a hydrant, but that's the most efficient way to do it. And it would be done at the town's expense rather than being done at the district's expense if it were done from within the station.
Interesting.
I would just suggest that we have some clarity about that, whatever the answer turns out to be.
We did have a discussion on that, I believe. And talked about the trucks
Not
that get,
about filling trucks.
Is that about filling
Right.
trucks?
It was the cleaning or the
Yeah.
trainings. I hadn't had that. So for their trainings, it was mentioned that they do usually fill a truck and then spray to use that, and that they could. So we know how much goes into a truck, and that could help us in documenting what comes out of a fire hydrant. I did not realize they could fill the truck from the metered water at the station.
that's what they do, and then they drive up the mountains with the pumper truck.
Well, usually they fill them from a hydrant.
I
Not
wouldn't say there is a usual practice. It's
Either
pretty
or.
common to do it one way or the other.
But in town, you take a pumper even though you have hydrants available? Or do most of the trucks you're filling go into the district?
On an incident, they will be filled, they will be drawing water from a hydrant. If there are incidents outside of town and we run a
That's what I thought.
rotation of the tenders,
Yeah,
they will typically be filled at the closest hydrant. If they're filled at the station, they may be filled at the station after an incident, either from the structure, from the hydrant.
And I would say that, regardless, I would like the board to be updated on the hydrant use and where you are with those discussions. If you recall, the reason that this got brought up was there was a day, I think it was, must have been the summer before this, where the hydrant was spurting up in the air for hours. And somebody said, hey, isn't that our water? What's going on over there?
can do that. I've just had an email with. I don't know if what Mr. Epler's title is, but
Firefighter.
firefighter Epler, okay.
Trustee Lowe, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
Anyone else? I'll call for the vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you to staff for your work on this.
Welcome.
Okay, next is another second reading from the hearing of ordinance 1200, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving an amendment to the agreement to buy and sell real estate for 2186 Apple Valley Road and 0 North St. Green Drive with Richard Barth Hemmelston. Is there a staff report?
Yeah, no significant staff update from me, and it's just a continuation of the first reading. It removes the requirement for the recreational easement as we previously discussed, and extends out the time frame to allow this ordinance to go into effect.
Right. Any questions for staff? I'll open the public hearing for this. Anyone? Okay. I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I move the approval of ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving an amendment to the agreement to buy and sell real estate for 2186 Apple Valley Road and 0 North St. Green Drive with Richard Barth Hemmelston.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion on this one? Trustee Lowell?
Yeah, I just want to state for the record, I'm happy that the town was finally shed of this AV water plant, and I think the $350,000 is gonna be a welcome addition to the water and sewer fund. But I'm more than frustrated that the access easement wasn't accepted by the buyer. I think perhaps that they didn't understand the intent of it, which was basically to allow users of the river, the tubers, the kayakers, the young kids, or the anglers, to touch the bottom of the river below the Apple Valley Bridge. That's all it was. I hope the new owner will understand the intent of those recreating in the river, and that there won't be any conflicts. I know the sale is gonna be approved tonight. Public access will be forbidden. And the so-called death by 1,000 cuts of river access that's currently taking place in Colorado will suffer yet another restriction to this sale. So I'll be voting no on this tonight, not because I don't approve of the sale, but because of the removal of the access easement.
You. Anyone else? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
The motion passes 6-1 with trustee Lowell voting no.
You. All right, next is first reading of ordinance 1201, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending chapter 2, article 8 of the Lyons Municipal Code regarding boards and commissions.
Thank you. This has been the subject of a couple of workshops and continued ones. And believe we have the ordinance updated with all of the language as we've discussed. A few commas added and a few periods. Other than that, it's the same content we've talked about at all of our meetings. To update the code to be consistent.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for staff on this? Okay, then I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 1201 on first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading for November 17, 2025.
Thank you. Second,
A second.
any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote on that.
And that motion passes unanimously.
You, moving right along. First reading of ordinance 1202, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending sections 13,430 and 13,4130 of the Lyons Municipal Code, prohibiting use of gray water and the installation of gray water treatment works. Attorney Dittman, would this be you?
It can be. So following up from the workshop, this is a response to a change in law that happened in 2024. Pursuant to House Bill 24-1362, it was changed in Colorado from gray water being an activity which could only be performed if permitted by a municipality to something which could not be prohibited by a municipality unless there was a resolution or ordinance that clarified that. And so what this does is it changes our municipal code and our wastewater utility regulations to prevent gray water use at this time. It does not prevent in the future considering gray water use. We have time to put in more thoughtful regulations when there's an interest in doing so. But it just keeps us from someone coming in, there being no regulations in place being at the start of the year. So that's pretty much it. It's a fairly simple ordinance, but be happy to take any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for staff? All right, then I would entertain a motion on ordinance 1202.
I move to approve ordinance 1202 on first reading, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, amending sections 13-4-30 and 13-4-130. The Lyons Municipal Code prohibiting the use of gray water and the installation of gray water treatment works.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that?
I have an amendment to offer. My amendment is in section 2 of the ordinance, and it would be to replace the definition of wastewater that is in the draft. By defining it as wastewater means water that has entered a portion of the sewage system, such as a drain or piping.
I would second that.
And the reason for this amendment is to make it clear that if someone collects water from, say, their shower head or their kitchen faucet and uses it for whatever purpose to flush toilet, to water plants, something, that will not be considered gray water, that will be allowed to be done. It's only when water enters the sewage system, like the drain or piping, that it becomes, wastewater. And I discussed this by email with, Utilities Director Kaplan and Attorney Pittman today. It clarifies it better than the language that was in there.
Trustee Will?
So what if I use any of my gray water to say flush my toilets? This would be okay.
Yes,
It's okay.
that's what this amendment allows, whereas the definition that was in there said reference to any water that may enter the town's utility systems, and that kind of left it to me ambiguous of that collecting water in a bucket or something, it may enter it if you don't catch it, so it just basically says it's not wastewater until it gets through the drain.
Okay.
Essentially.
Any other questions, comments on the amendment? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment then.
And that amendment passes unanimously.
Perfect. Any other amendments or discussion? All right, then let's vote on the ordinance as amended.
And that ordinance passes unanimously.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, our last ordinance tonight is the first reading of ordinance 1203, an ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the rezoning of 4651 and 4652 Ute Highway from Commercial Eastern Corridor, CEC, to PUD, CEC, with a request to continue to the December 1st meeting.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees. We had already sent out the public notice, but this item is not quite ready yet. It also got continued on the planning commission agenda to November 24th. So we're requesting a continuance first reading to December 15th and subsequently for second reading later in the month. But this is just to keep public notice from having to be redone.
Great. Thank you. Is there a motion to continue to the December 1st meeting?
I'm going to continue ordinance 1203 and ordinance of the town of Lyons, Colorado, approving the plan unit development for 4651 and 4652 Ute Highway to December 1.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Okay, on that motion?
And that motion passes unanimously.
Yep. Okay, moving right along to the consent agenda. Clerk Vasquez, will you please reconsent into the hearing?
Yes, item 1 are the October 20th, 2025 regular Board of Trustees meeting minutes. And item 2 are the November accounts payable.
Terrific. Is there a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Also,
Anything anyone would like to remove? Okay, let's vote on consent.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. All right, moving along to boards and commissions. It is my pleasure to appoint Nate Moran to the Board of Adjustments. And I think what we've all been looking forward to is the EAB update on B City certification recommendations. Would you like to come on up?
Yes, I would love to. She need to sit, or are you okay standing or you want to sit?
I'm okay.
Okay,
And if you don't mind introducing yourself.
I would love to.
Hello all, I'm Tegan Johnson Moore, 211 McConnell Court here in Lyons. I'm representing, I'm chairwoman of the Ecological Advisory Board and in supporting Lyons becoming Bee City USA. On behalf of the Ecological Advisory Board, I am presenting a resolution in support of Bee City USA designation by the Xerxes Society. This resolution outlines the town of Lyons' commitment to conserving and supporting pollinators, their habitats, and ecological systems upon which they depend. Whereas Bee City USA encourages communities to sustain pollinators that are responsible for the reproduction of 90% of flowering plant species by conserving habitat rich in a variety of native plants and free to nearly free of all pesticides. And whereas more than 3,600 of native bees occur in the United States, and these pollinators, along with the introduced honeybees, depend on diverse vegetation and facilitate the production of numerous American agricultural products. And whereas bees and other pollinators have recently experienced dramatic population declines due to a combination of habitat loss, poor nutrition, pesticide exposure, and climate change. It is clear that pollinators are essential to healthy ecosystems, local agriculture, and to the biodiversity that defines the natural heritage of communities like Lyons. Lions is uniquely positioned to join the national network of Bee City USA affiliates. We already demonstrate a strong commitment to sustainability through our integrated pest management plan, first adopted in 2020 and updated in 2024, which limits the use of synthetic herbicides and pesticides in town parks such as Laverne Johnson Park, Sandstone, Bone, and Lions Valley River Parks. Lions also benefits from extraordinary community participation in ecological projects, from volunteer weed pulls to tree planting in the community orchard, and continued care for pollinator-friendly spaces like the Lions Botanical Garden. Furthermore, our location, surrounded by open space, riparian areas, and rural landscapes, creates ideal conditions to expand and connect pollinator habitats. Bee City designation only simply recognizes and strengthens this foundation. This resolution established that formally designates the town of Lions as the entity to apply for Bee City USA status through the Xerxes Society. It assigns primary liaison responsibilities to the Lions Park and Public Works Department and its director, who will serve as the town's official Bee USA contact. Once designation is achieved, the town will install and maintain at least one authorized Bee City USA street sign in a prominent location and create an official webpage that includes a copy of this resolution, links to the National Bee City USA website, contact information for the Bee City liaison and committee, any reports of pollinator-friendly activities, a recommended native plant list, and a link to the town's integrated pest management plan. The town will also submit an annual renewal application each February, reporting on the year's activities and paying the renewal fee required by the Xerxes Society based on our population. Facilitation of the Bee City USA will be assigned to the Lions Ecological Advisory Board. EAB will conduct the required annual outreach or habitat activity with the support of Tyler's to Learn at Simply Bee Conservation nonprofit, host at least one educational and pollinator planting or restoration project each year, track the gardens of pollinator-friendly habitat within town and work to increase it, and assist the public and Parks and Public Works Department with the Bee City administration needs. Additionally, the EAB will continue to support the reduction and elimination of synthetic pesticide use by reviewing any applications for use on town-owned or managed properties in accordance with the integrated pest management plan. EAB will also provide a recommended local native plant list from Simply Bee Conservation, identify opportunities to create and link pollinator-friendly habitats on both public and private lands, and provide input to the town's comprehensive plan and other planning documents to ensure pollinator conservation is incorporated into future land use and management decisions. Together, the town and the EAB will strengthen pollinator health and habitat, enhance ecological resilience, and promote community awareness of environmental sustainability. Pollinator-friendly communities like Lions benefit regional economies through healthier ecosystems, more robust agriculture, and preservation of biodiversity, all of which support the tourism and outdoor recreation that are central to our local identity. This resolution acknowledges that the economy of Lions is enhanced by outdoor-oriented tourism motivated by a relatively undegraded natural environment. By formally committing to Bee City USA, Lions positions itself as a model for responsible stewardship, civic engagement, and ecological leadership. In summary, the resolution establishes a partnership between the town of Lions and the Ecological Advisory Board to secure Bee City USA designation, maintain pollinator-friendly policies and spaces, and educate and engage our community in conservation efforts that ensure a thriving environment for both people and pollinators. It reflects our shared belief that the protection of pollinators is integral to the long-term health and beauty and sustainability of Lions. On behalf of the Ecological Advisory Board, I respectfully recommend the adoption of this resolution affirming the town of Lions' commitment to preserving our natural heritage through Bee City USA designation. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks for the work that you've done on this.
Of course.
I have a couple of questions. I imagine the rest of the board might have a couple of questions if you don't mind.
Of course.
Anybody have any Bee City questions? Go ahead.
There's a small item in the budget on this, like $500 or something, is that right? That's just the delivery for this year.
For activities and events, I believe is what you asked.
Yep.
Yeah,
That'll be a year by year decision whether we do that or not.
well, we'll have to do the events, whether or not you budget toward them, yes, that will be a year by year decision. We have to have so many, we have to have.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
one event, Dave Cosgrove suggested that we combine it with our Arbor Day or Tree City USA event in April.
Do them together.
Trustee Lowe?
Was there a requirement that there be a project, an annual project?
I think that goes along the lines with the event itself.
Okay, because I've got a great one for you.
We're ready to hear it.
Watch out.
I was down in Santa Fe a couple of years ago in the park there, they have this giant structure that has nothing, there's nothing but various shaped tubes for these native bees.
Mhm.
We can do
They have
this.
those at the elementary school.
I have one at my house.
Is it this big?
No, but it's a bunch of small ones,
Okay.
many small ones.
Yeah, this was very cool. It's a kiosk in the middle of the park.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Trustee
And
Member?
I have another project, so,
All ears.
we've got a grant, and in the grant, there was 5 tasks, and one of those was to create a pollinator garden.
Oh,
That
okay.
we,
Amazing. Great.
Well, at Leaf and
anywhere?
well, could be anything. So probably worth the dialogue with Leaf.
Wonderful. Simply Bee Conservation actually produces a ready to plant garden box. So we will be collaborating and at least in conversation with our lovely friend Tyler here to get those rolling, especially with Leaf.
Would you guys be up for identifying areas in town you think we need more?
Sure,
I mean, like that are sparse or have none right now.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Go ahead, trustee Dati.
Yeah, so just, you mentioned the garden boxes. So I'm just wondering, if that would be continued within this program and where that fits in.
It'll be it's part of the outreach event, which Tyler can speak more upon.
Yeah.
I see your budget is.
Yeah, and that's what we use the budget for.
Trustee Will?
One anecdote and a warning. So several years ago, the state of New Hampshire thought it'd be wonderful to plant wildflowers in the median. Some of the highways, good idea, like they were beautiful. Except that everybody's grill and windshield were filled with bees. When they went by at 70 miles an hour, so let's not plant them near any high speed.
We got that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make note of that. For the AP.
So if the board supports this recommendation, we would gear up a resolution and put it on your consent agenda November 17th.
I think that's great.
So you won't have to return.
Awesome.
I mean, you can, whenever you.
You can, of course, but we'll
I mean,
just,
I am learning a lot this evening. so
it'll
it's
just
okay.
be on consent where they just read the titles.
Lovely. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your service. Efficient, okay, great. And we will be getting the bee headbands.
Oh, boy. The mayor wants to wear the antennas and I think
Or habits, or striking habits. Something for pollinator.
you need to have Jen order those.
Pollinator. I don't know.
Pollinator.
We'll find out, I'm sure. Okay, okay, let's move on to general business. The first item is resolution 2025-69. Approving the affordable housing grant agreement with Boulder County and the subrecipient grant agreement with Boulder County Housing Authority. I believe Director Lopez Baker was gonna join us. Is she on? Oh,
There
good
she is.
evening, Director. Nice to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mayor Rogan. Nice to be here.
Okay, staff report, please.
So we brought this to you at the previous meeting to consider the acceptance of $900,000 from Boulder County through the Affordable and Attainable Housing Tax, and then a subrecipient agreement with Boulder County Housing Authority to direct the funds on the town's behalf to do work on the Carter Court property, as well as the 224 Seward property. The board requested some changes to the agreement. Attorney Dittman has drafted the changes. Boulder County has reviewed the changes. We got those this afternoon. And I have a copy of those, and then I'll let Attorney Dittman probably take the language on the changes and the county's response from Susan.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my screen. There's only 2 changes, and that's to the funding agreement, but I can share my screen if I'm enabled to show you what those are. Oh, Dolores, can you activate me?
I can, there you go, sir.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, is that up on the screen? I can zoom it in.
Yeah, if you could zoom in, that'd be great.
Is that better or?
Yes.
Okay, so
You know,
yeah,
like,
2
can you make it
changes. Pardon?
Sorry. Can you make it any bigger for us? That's great. Perfect, thank you.
So two changes from the version we sent them. I took all the suggestions that were sent to me and incorporated them into the draft, the two agreements. And so there was only changes we got back on the funding agreement. The first was project partner, specifically being defined as the Boulder County Housing Authority rather than a more generic third-party governmental entity or nonprofit for affordable housing provider. I think, personally, given the intent for the monies to go to the Boulder County Housing Authority, that would seem to be non-objectionable. That was the one change.
That was the only change?
No, there was one. I'll proceed to the second one if there's any, comments on this one.
Anybody have a comment on this change? No? Yeah, please proceed.
Okay, so the second one is to the integration clause of the agreements. That's section 15. I had added, based on a request from the board that, it be clarified that it's a complete agreement between the parties at the time of the execution of this agreement, intending to show that there may be future agreements, which is the board's concern. That has been deleted by the county attorney's office. And what I will say is that, I think if you read this later on, that it only terminates prior agreements, whether written, oral, whole, or in part, and that's typically how integration clauses are interpreted. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary from my perspective to have the addition, but I understand what the intent was. That's why I try to reflect the changes that we had. Happy to hear the board's opinion on how they feel about this change.
What do we think?
I don't think this is a big deal. I just think we all need to recognize it. This is just the first stage of two different projects, and this is not going to be final agreement.
Yeah.
If it is, I don't believe this, but I think we just need to recognize going into this is the first step of future agreements.
Anyone else?
And so
Director
that,
Lopez? Sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that is the end of the changes, so I can stop sharing my screen.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
Director Lopez Baker, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so. I think the attorney's offices work together, and so we're in support of the agreement as stated.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, are there any questions for staff? Questions?
Yeah, I asked this question the last time, and I don't know whether I didn't get the answer or I didn't catch the answer. But there's a $700,000 allotment for Carden Court. We only show $600,000 in our capital plan.
For Stream Bank.
For Stream Bank.
Yeah, the county has allocated 700,000 toward Carter Court. So whatever we don't use, they'll use toward something else.
So none of,
We're
so
giving it
so
to
if the Stream Bank comes out to 400,000.
Yeah, they have 700 they want to
The other
put toward this,
300,000 will go to the houses themselves.
or some other aspect of the construction or engineering, yeah.
All right, and the other question I had was, how long do we hold this money?
We're not holding it.
We won't.
We don't hold it.
Mhm.
It goes in and comes right out the next day?
I mean, administratively, as quickly as it needs to happen.
So this is just window dressing, really. It's just to show our commitment.
Well, no,
It's
it's accepting the
passive
money
house.
from Boulder County and giving it to Boulder County Housing Authority.
For the fiscal sponsor.
Right? So they're giving us the money. It says here, within 24 months after disbursement, we have this project completed. But we don't hold the money for that long. We're not giving it to them, we're not giving it to them piecemeal.
No, correct.
No.
We would be giving them the entire amount along with all of the obligations in the subrecipient agreement to complete.
You see, my only concern is I'm worried about, I was initially worried about who gets the interest if this money is held for a long period of time. And you're saying it won't be.
We had a conversation with Director Eystone, and I think she agrees that administratively processing invoices, and if they had to, submit an invoice for payment, that she doesn't believe that would be probably worth it for the town to try and track and hold, and then we have our own reporting obligations, et cetera.
Oh, I definitely agree. We
Yeah.
don't want.
Trustee, I
the-
did ask legal about your interest question, and if any interest is borne on the account, it has to go to the project. So whether BCHA holds it or the town of Lyons holds it, any interest would then have to go into the project.
Okay.
Okay. Then I would, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion then. Is that-
No, I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said you.
No, I did. We authorized sending a letter to support a state grant, for, I believe it was just a Carter Court project. What's the status of that?
They did not receive the grant.
Has that had any effect on the project?
Suzanne and my own.
No effect on the project, and we are currently, the way that the state approached that scattered site grant is that they awarded it to various entities that will actually be doing work in our county. And so we've kind of shifted gears and are in hopes that some of those units will come back to Boulder County. But it would have to be through a partnership. So we're working that angle. They're also expected to do a second round, and we're working really closely with the state to kind of pitch our project and build some relationship on the back end to try again. But it does not impact the project. Of course, any dollars that we raise will bring down the cost of those homes, and that's our ultimate goal. However, I think there's other ways to get there.
Another question is, one of the limitations in the documents is that this money will be spent for capital expenditures only. This is the first phase of really of the sewer project, where we know that that goes forward, there are going to be expenditures for relocation of residents during construction, which can be significant. Trustee Lee Williams will tell you that. And we know there's gonna be zoning related expenses, both staff time and attorney time, because we know there's zoning issues there. I don't think either one of those is a capital expenditure. So where's the money for those types of things going to come from if those aren't capital expenditures?
That's a good question. In terms of relocation of residents, we are bound by some pretty strict rules, so we would have to fundraise for that. And we have various ways to do that, whether it's grant dollars or BCHA investment. It's a cost that we cannot legally escape. So we will work closely with various funding sources to do that. And we do that. I mean, we do that all the time when we upgrade properties throughout the county. So I'm not worried about that. In terms of staff costs, BCHA invests in development staff, so we have staff that are able to do that, and so we pay our attorneys for that, and so we kind of have that built into our annual budget, if you will, from the BCHA side.
Downside, what's the anticipation that we'll be spending staff and attorney time on that, and it won't be paid for by these
On feasibility,
tax funding? Yeah.
there will be
Something-
staff time,
Yeah.
continuing to kind of advise on feasibility. So I don't know if that would be considered, just over and above, but we're not, it's structured to be reimbursed for staff time to support these projects. That would be a contribution of the town.
And not just even building, there's gonna be some zoning issues that are gonna take some time with this. Right.
Yeah, particularly on Seward, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, another question, is something that was mentioned at the prior discussion of this and is in the agreement is that if it's determined that Carter Court is not feasible, that money could be moved to a different project. If this money has to be spent by the end of 2026, is it realistic to shift it to another project that would be done at this point? You're talking about 14 months?
It's the end of 2027.
2027.
Correct. So it's 2 years, and these funds are 25, so end of 27.
All right. I believe that's all my questions.
Great, thank you. Trustee Williams, you had a question?
I was just going to comment that I don't know what the guidelines are for the housing authority or for others But it is common practice for a pretty wide variety of costs to be capitalized. So what we think of as capital costs may be hard costs associated with the site or the construction, or they may be soft costs that are professionals or lending or administrative support. So there is this question of what should and shouldn't be reimbursed to the town. That's a pretty different question from what could be eligible to be capitalized as part of the project.
I see Director up there nodding along with you, so thank you for that. Other questions before I entertain a motion? Would you like to make a motion, Trustee Dusty?
Yes, I would very much like to do so. I move to approve resolution 2025-69, approving the 2025 Affordable Housing Grant Agreement with Boulder County and subrecipient agreement with Boulder County Housing Authority.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, now discussion. Any discussion?
Yes. I have some concerns and comments about, in particular, how the Carter Court aspect of this has been handled. Number one, the basic contract structure where this project, as originally envisioned in discussions, was going to be something that Boulder County Housing was going to do. Town of Lyons was willing to consider providing the land, but it was going to be a Boulder County project. It's apparent that the town of Lyons is going to devote, has already devoted a significant amount of staff time to this. I don't think it had to be structured that way. I think an agreement could have been made where the town would have donated the land, discussed waiving possibly some of the minor fees, and Boulder County could have done the project. They thought it was feasible at their cost. So I have concerns that it was structured this way. And it's important to realize not that structure issue was not done just for Carter Court, but it's also the first part of doing it for Seward, which is going to be a much bigger and much more complex project. That contractual structure, they pay us money, we spend some staff time, we pay them money back. It didn't have to be done that way. There was nothing in the ballot measure, the tax maker that required it. It's just something that Boulder County came up with. I think it was unnecessary bureaucratic steps, and that's a concern. I also want to just mention for the record that when this grant application was made, we authorized the signing of a letter to the state supporting the grant application. I wanted to see what the grant application looked like if we were going to be recommending it to the state. So through the staff, I asked Boulder County Housing, could we see a copy of the grant application? To my surprise, they said no. They said they were quote unquote special and they didn't have to do that. This is somebody we're going to be not legally, but at least some respects a partner with. So that kind of upset me because the grant application from the county to the state is clearly a public record document. So I followed it up with a core request. I said, I want to see it as public record. Why aren't you subject to core? First core response I got back was a whole set of documents. I was buried the needle in the haystack set of documents, but actually the needle wasn't in the haystack. They didn't produce the grant request. I had to do a second follow-up request through county legal to say, where's what I asked for? I didn't want all this. So finally got it. That's to me not a good way to start a long-term contractual relationship when one public body refuses to share a public document with another public body. It concerns me very much that there has not been a discussion up front of the amount of subsidies that the town of Lyons may be asked to provide for either project. They say they're not ready to discuss that. But I don't see how you can really evaluate the feasibility of a project without knowing what all your major cost components are. I don't know any developer, for-profit or non-profit, that does that. They don't know how much just looking at the utilities and water rights alone, you're probably talking about roughly $200,000 worth of things, of potential costs. The land, we had an appraisal for what it's worth. If this was more than $500,000, there's no agreement yet that we're going to provide the land. So there's a potential $500,000 cost on it. I don't know what the actual. They're looking at from a feasibility standpoint at what it's going to cost to do the banking at Carter Court. There's another big cost component, and which we don't know yet, and nor have heard anything about what the actual construction cost might be estimated to be even on a per square foot basis. So, that type of analysis of all those major cost factors, in my view, should be done upfront, not during the middle of the project. And those of us who were around during the Summit project know what happened. Midway through, after all the, actually 2 rounds of agreements have been signed, here came Summit saying, we're gonna have to pull out of this project because of unexpected costs, and then they basically came asking us for some subsidies and concessions at that time. I think those should be negotiated upfront, at least in broad outline form, so there's a good recognition of what the costs are gonna be. There's a requirement in here that I don't understand, and I asked Planner Richie today about why should the town of Lyons be required to do an annual update to our housing assessment when we are a built out town, 8 or 9 lots left. We've just done not 1 but 2 housing assessments. What are we going to update, and why? And what is Boulder County looking for there? How much are we going to have to spend in staff time and cost to update the housing assessment, the housing future plan, plus addendum that we spent a lot of time on? I don't understand why that's necessary. Couple of other things. Just in general, I'm disappointed that Seward is not being prioritized over Carter Court. Seward would help more people. It's already been purchased. It's got broad community support. I think that should be prioritized, and I think the county priorities on these 2 projects are backwards. I do want to follow up on a discussion that was held that occurred at the last meeting about our opportunistic approach policy on housing. Being opportunistic on affordable housing opportunities in Lyons does not mean that you take advantage, that you try to do every single opportunity that comes along. We probably should have described our policy as opportunistic and selective. Opportunistic to me means you evaluate each project and see whether they make sense for the town, the potential residents, and for the taxpayers and ratepayers of Lyons. I think it's pretty fair to say that if somebody had brought the town of Lyons a project that said you may need to spend $500,000-$600,000 to remediate a bank and then do the construction and then deal with the utilities for 2 duplex units, we would have said that's not something we're going to do. Doesn't fit our parameters of what makes sense for all of the parties, including the taxpayers and ratepayers. But because Boulder County is going to do it, if we only contribute a small amount and maybe the land, maybe it makes sense for us or not. I don't think we know that. But I do not think it's appropriate that we try to take advantage of every single opportunity that may come our way, particularly when the numbers, if we were going to do this project, I don't think would ever make sense. Finally, the last and to me the most important point that I want to remind the board and the public about. Our citizens have made their views very clear. They understand that we have met our affordable housing goals, and that while we may want to take a look at other projects that may come along, be opportunistic and selective, as I put it, we do not try to need to do every potential housing project that comes. And secondly, they made it clear that it's in terms of the town's budget priorities, additional affordable housing beyond our goals that have already been met as a relatively low priority. I don't know what our contributions are expected to be to this because we haven't negotiated what our subsidies are going to be. I don't know how much staff time is going to be required for doing things such as an annual update to our housing assessments. So to me, that is the most important factor here.
Trustee Browning, I'll ask you to please wrap it up.
Getting there. Said that was my last point, and I will wrap up there. Please let me finish my statement. And I believe we need to give effect to the views that our citizens have expressed. I'm not opposed to this project. I'm not opposed to donating the land. I'm not opposed to waiving some of the minor fees. But with all those uncertainties, given what our citizens have said about our priorities should be, I can't support the Carter Court project as it exists now.
Thank you. Trustee Dottie.
Well, I for one would like to express my gratitude to the Boulder County voters who passed ballots when we in 2023. I think people in our county realize how difficult it is to find affordable and attainable housing. And they dedicated this tax to that. And I am so grateful for the partnership we have with Boulder County Housing Authority, that they were, they recognized the opportunities that did exist in Lyons, because there are few opportunities, and here they are. Beggars cannot be choosers. These are two valid opportunities. One of them is a mobile home park that could have been bought and transformed to one giant mega mansion. And we avoided that. Thank you to this tax that has created enough funding to buy the mobile home park and hopefully keep 12 to 14 families in our community. That's huge. And secondly, the Carter Court being able to give an opportunity to 4 families to purchase their first home in Boulder County, being able to purchase a home for $400,000 to $500,000, that's a little unheard of here in Lyons. It really is, even in Boulder County. So I am extremely grateful that these are the opportunities that have been presented to us. And I'm really grateful that we are looking into this as really solid options. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I am very grateful to Boulder County for their long-term connections with us, whether it's Walt South, whether it's Carter Court, whether it's Seward. And recognize that they had many opportunities and many municipalities interested in receiving the funds that they are willing to designate to Boulder County. And I designate to a municipality within the county. And I, for one, am very, very pleased that they are willing to devote 700,000 to Carter Court and 200,000 to Seward.
Thank you. Trustee Williams, anything?
Couple of things, on this question of how the agreement and how the project funding is structured. I'm willing to take some comfort in the discussions that staff have had, that our attorneys have had, that Boulder authorities have had. And to accept that this is an appropriate and reasonable way to structure the agreement. I know it seems like it could be window dressing, seems like it could be convoluted. But if that's the way that the legislation or the ballot measure ultimately was interpreted, I'm comfortable with it. I appreciate the fact that we're going to see some progress on both Seward and Carter Court. I think it's reassuring to me that we get some of each, that we don't have to entirely choose between the two. I might have allocated a little bit more to Seward if that were possible, and a little less to Carter Court if that were possible. And that may turn out to be the answer once we see the engineering and once they do a little bit more due diligence and understand what has to happen. But the fact that we get some of each, I think is a pretty good start. I do have some concerns about the potential costs of the Carter Court project. If it is $700,000 from this source, if it's $500,000 from each of 4 homeowners, if it's some contribution from Lyons, then at the end of the day, we'll have to judge that against the value of providing homes to 4 households at a discount and the restoration of the stream bank. So I intend to support the ratifications agreement, but I think I will be more skeptical when the time comes when we're asked to make contributions. I may look more favorably on land, for example, than on other contributions, but I'm comfortable making those decisions at a later date. I respect Trustee Browning's preference for having some of that clarified up front, but I'm willing to take these first couple of steps and to make those decisions a little bit later. So I intend to support now and withhold my judgment on some other questions that I think we'll have to deal with later on.
Trustee Hamrick?
Yeah, I'm supportive of this, and I appreciate Boulder County Housing Authority's interest in Lyons and moving these projects forward. I do agree with Trustee Browning, the process seems a little backwards. It seems like it would be nice to see a back of the napkin business case on each one, just to see. Because ultimately, are there other opportunities in town that could be more effective, get the bigger bang for the buck? We don't know. So I don't know if there's any opportunity in the future to change the process so we have a better idea of costs going in upfront, as well as the contribution. I'm supportive of the town donating land as well as, you know, some of the other minor costs, but it'd be nice to just see all that up front to make sure. Because as part of my concern with Carter Court, even though I'm supportive, is you spending a boatload, you know, you spend 2 or 3 minutes, do the math and it comes up, it's pretty costly. And could have the money been spent better elsewhere, but. I think the process probably is the process, and we have to deal with it, but maybe going forward, if we have any opportunity to change, we should look at that.
Thank you. Trustee Lowe.
I have some discomfort with this. Mainly, I would have preferred that, by the way, I appreciate BCHA dedicating this money to Lions. It's not that I'm not in support of the project on Carter Court. I just think it's gonna be incredibly expensive. I've had experience with this since 2016. I know what it's gonna take, and it's gonna, those houses are not gonna be affordable when it all is said and done. I think we're putting a cart before the horse with this agreement. I would rather have had Boulder County Housing Authority come to us with an analysis of what it's going to take to fix the banking and what they expect of us in the town, what kind of subsidies, what kind of incentives. So, I can't support this in its present form right now, although I appreciate the money for sure.
I would like to say that, we invest in our values. You can tell a community's values by where the money goes. And I am extremely grateful to our partners at Boulder County and particularly Boulder County Housing Authority for this opportunity to express our values. I understand that some of our citizens have made their views very clear. There was also a 2-year comprehensive plan process, and I don't want to relitigate this argument. But there is a need for housing, more housing affordability in Lyons. The landscape of housing affordability has completely shifted since 2017. Completely shifted. When it comes to staff time, I wonder whether these projects would take more staff time than any other similar projects that didn't include a housing affordability component. And that is the job of staff. That is the job of planning staff. You know, sometimes opportunities present themselves and we can't control the timing. And the truth is, the opportunity of this money presented itself. This money had to be allocated. We were lucky enough to have projects ready enough for this funding. And Director, you can correct me if I'm wrong about Seward. I personally think that there's definitely more bang for the buck at Seward. But there also is, there needs to be more investigation about exactly what is existing at Seward now in terms of what's underneath the ground and what can be done on that property. So, and this money has to be spent within a certain time frame. So I think we're all in agreement that we would love to see, have been able to see the sewer project come first, but that's not what the reality is bearing. So I'm appreciative of our partners at BCHA and Boulder County, and I will be enthusiastically voting yes for this agreement. And with that, I will call for the vote.
Very, very brief response. I want to make it clear that
I've called for the vote.
I'm entitled under our rules to make a response after other members have stated their position. And
Brandon?
it will be very brief.
You can
That's what-
call the question and take a vote if you want, but
Okay, be brief, please.
I will. As to Seward, I want to make it clear, I strongly support Seward, and I agree, I am very appreciative of Boulder County Housing acquiring that property. I think Seward should be handled under a separate contract. Carter Court, I don't think they should be combined. And secondly, Seward was not purchased with this tax money, Seward was purchased with park money. That's all.
Thank
That's
you.
my comments.
And the motion passes 5-2 with trustees Browning and Lowell voting no.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Lopez Baker. Feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you all. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, let's move on to discussion direction resulting from the town hall on the wildfire resiliency code.
Thank you, Mayor and Trustees. Not sure how much you'd like to cover on this tonight. Included in your packet was the same memo that went out to the town hall, as well as the presentation that we shared during the town hall. I'm happy to pull that up. We received 6 written responses to the handout that was provided, as well as all the verbal feedback that you all heard. So I'm happy to pull up the results of kind of the voting we received on writing if you'd like, but let me know how much you'd like me to cover and we'll go from there.
What's the budget?
I'd like to hear some characterization of what you heard back from people.
Okay. I think the summary was,
We heard 3 themes. Took notes of that. There were 3 themes that kind of came out. As you know, there were expressions, you know, of all directions, of course, but let me find that here. Here it is. It was we heard that people would like you to keep it simple. Focus on a simple list, maybe a grace period too with that. But that they'd like you to pick, you know, 3 or 4 things or 5, whatever you decide, that people could focus on getting done instead of overwhelming them with all sorts of low-hanging fruit, more expensive items. Pick a few and let's educate and work on those. That was one thing we heard. Priority should be the exterior perimeter of the town. We heard that from several of the neighborhoods, including Corona Hill, Steamboat Mountain neighbors, and Stone Canyon. There was one other neighborhood that voiced that too. So priority should focus there. And this will moderate the risk elsewhere. And then education will be critical, incentives would be helpful. I think there's one more.
Okay, thank you.
Offering assistance both by neighbors, financial, but not creating more exclusivity in Lions by doing so. Oh, the other thing I heard in note taking was people are kind of confused because they call on different groups to come do their assessments and they're being told different things. So however we can help streamline that process, you know, they were saying if the fire department comes, they hear one thing. If it's wildfire partners, it's a hair different. You know, and that people weren't, I mean, I don't think retroactive measures were necessarily thrown out, but the response from the 6 that we got was that they need more information and they want to do that slowly. And I think we'll get more responses. You know, there was a lot to take in that night. And I think some of the people wanted to take those sheets home and look at them. So I think what staff is asking tonight is what are the next steps you want us to take regarding this? Do we want to really focus this next, you know, 6 to 8 months or something on education of the code and who it applies to? Because that's even confusing to people. And then identify a few simple tasks we just really want to encourage everyone to do.
Also, we can do more outreach, maybe turn the questions that we asked in the meeting into an online survey, push that out, right? So we can get hopefully way more than 6 responses in the verbal feedback that you all heard, just to try and clarify a little bit what we heard too. So PCDC also had a discussion on this wildfire code as well as mitigation. I think their general sentiment was not in support of retroactive requirements out of the gate, but definitely on an incentive education and phasing in over time, I think, but they actually informed some of the kind of additional questions that we asked about maybe lowering the threshold for when a code applies, or, maybe choosing from a menu of options. So I think they kind of expanded the conversation a little bit, too, which I think is always, from my perspective, good, right? I think additional feedback can bring new ideas to the table and help us massage maybe an approach. I do think that, we're still learning the language in the code as it's written. I think, some of the applicability and how it will be interpreted by building officials and different jurisdictions around the region. I think I'm also fairly cautious to recommend getting too far in front of, I think, the understanding of how this code is gonna be applied out there with, as it's written. So I think to keep it simple, and anything retroactive, I think, is probably my biggest personal recommendation, just keeping it simple.
Trustee Hamrick and trustee Will.
Do we, I know, it's my understanding Wildfire Partners rebates have stopped for the
Yep,
year.
yep.
Do we know what they're considering for next year as we get into?
I haven't heard anything on that.
I'm thinking I heard something, I think they're gonna do something similar.
Cause it was, 4 items, I think. Jennifer, going over about the-
Fences or fuses, junipers, and, yep.
So it'd be interesting if we can
Yep.
get some information on that to tie that into our
We can do
budget
that as a
discussion, see
follow-up.
if we can.
Yep.
Cause I do think, trustee Lily, you brought up, if we had like the fencing and you could spend 2,000 and get half of it, 1 inch kick in half and, or not half, but a quarter and another quarter by, but then we can incent people the right way and actually affect some change next year.
Sorry, go ahead, Lisa.
I was gonna say, while you're doing that, I can pull up the responses from the 6 that we did receive, if you'd like.
The other action item was, if you want us to put the presentation that Lisa gave on the website and start getting that out there.
Absolutely.
And then gearing up when we're going to adopt.
Yeah, so, I've been trying to track,
If
some of the other communities that are adopting this, just again, I think just to maybe understand some of any local amendments they're considering or clarifying language. So again, I think I saw Fort Collins posted their draft ordinance. It's the first one that I've seen. I try and kind of check weekly. So again, I think I'm still just making sure, I think we have a good understanding of practical effect of this code. So I think we have some time. So I don't have a draft. I don't have a date yet for when. I know you've asked for it to be high priority, and we are, but I'm still just trying to kind of monitor where the language is going.
Trustee Will.
Yeah, Dave, so the Meg Halford, who came and did the Lions Valley Park assessment, she gave every assurance that they'll re-up that program in 2026. So, as to, I wonder if it would be appropriate to do a workshop on this whole thing to figure out if we
Another
want,
one?
just to discuss the retroactive.
Probably,
I mean, not right away, but.
yeah. I think it'll be helpful to have more discussions about that. I do think, first of all, I think the town hall was well attended. I think it was well run. Kudos to you, I know Richie, for doing a great job, and presenting great information. It was such a small, even though it was well attended, it was such a small percentage of the population. I am really interested in hearing what others have to think before we have a broader discussion. So if we could get more data through something like the survey, I think that would be helpful.
You you can't always trust social media, but I posted the photo of.
You can't?
No. I posted the photo on Facebook up there on Mealy and Prospect on Saturday, and you got like 85 likes and a whole bunch of comments. So I think there's a thirst here for doing stuff in fire mitigation. I think a survey.
Or at least posting on social media about it.
That's right, at least those people. But the question I have is, so we've got 2 new houses under construction off McConnell. The code doesn't take effect until March of 20.
Well, we can make it apply as soon as we adopt it, but we have to have it we have to adopt it by March and in effect by June, but we have.
Well, I was just curious, those 2 houses are going to be at the very outermost.
Yes. Yes,
edge of town.
again, understanding the urgency, yeah.
Yeah.
But we, yeah, it would be.
So you're saying we could adopt it at any time?
We can adopt it as soon as we can prepare the language of the ordinance again, I think, and Attorney Dittman and I can work on that, or Colin, again, I think just making sure we have a good understanding of the structure of the ordinance. I think there was some talk about the location of inserting some of the language in the zoning code and some of it in adopt by reference, so.
Just a follow-up,
Yeah.
so these folks have already pulled, at least one of them have already pulled.
Their permit is issued, so we cannot change.
Okay,
It
so
would not apply to
they're not
them.
gonna be covered by the rules.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes,
But she does have a.
she does have fire sprinklers,
What's that?
the
Yeah,
fire
the
sprinklers are
sprinklers.
required. And to be fair, I mean, just to clarify timing, right? It would also not go into effect for 30 days, so depending on next building permit, it could be a bit before.
And I'm sorry, I may have missed it. How many other municipalities have adopted it so far?
I've been tracking, and Fort Collins is the first one I've seen pop up with a draft for council discussion. And I haven't, again, just kind of try and check weekly with Google and AI searches to see what else.
But they're
may be.
home rule as well.
They're home rule.
Yeah, they're home
Where
rule.
their statute will fall under the state if nothing else. So we have that to fall back on, and that might be why you're not seeing a bunch of statutories moving forward.
Yeah.
They're gonna wait to let others take the home rules take the lead and get some ideas and then, but this will apply to us starting in July.
We'll have to adopt it, and I think we'll probably have some clarifying language based on the things I saw in Fort Collins. I thought they made a lot of sense, just little minor tweaks. I know there's a monthly peer exchange group that DOLA is offering to local governments, and staff's been attending that, and I think we're all kind of waiting to see who's gonna start first and put this out. But Attorney Dittman, I don't know if any of your other communities, if you've begun drafting this yet either.
Not yet. Because
Okay.
we're all kind of small to middle size, and so again, waiting on the bigger jurisdictions, home rule jurisdictions to go first.
So what kind of discussion or direction do you want to give us to move forward now?
Let's see what, Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any?
I do believe that. I wanna know what folks in town think, because I think most people who are not looking at their pocketbooks would have to agree that we're not gonna stop the town from burning down unless we move to existing properties at some point in the future. Funding that from an outside source would be great, particularly where people are not able to afford it themselves. I am not about to tiptoe into that right now because we'll get skewered. But I just think common sense, if I don't remove the blue spruce right in front of my house, if I don't remove, there's some things that just are gonna have to happen in this town if we don't want the town to burn down. I saw that house that was untouched and marvelously so up Stone Canyon. Because they had done the work that needed to be done. And it was just apparent the next day when we were up there with Cody. So yeah, I want to get moving on this, I want to get something going. I just want to say that I think eventually we're going to have to look more deeply at this.
Trustee Bernie?
Yeah, public education is gonna be important here, but I think we start from a base, like you say, and I think there's a general understanding, as I think kind of the audience will be at the meeting reflective, that people know this is a problem, they know something's coming. Part of that education is gonna be the community wildfire protection plan that the fire district's working on, and when is that anticipated now?
Really held up. I'm trying to push to get this out to a separate company to do the final editing. Chief Pishke and I are meeting next week to try to get that across to the rest of the group.
It would make logical sense to have that available as a resource at the time we're educating people, because it's an easy reference source. This is important stuff. Fire districts done this analysis, and here are the things that are at risk. So I think our timing for doing this, assuming that's gonna be done, I hope by the end of the year, we ought to follow on that as part of our education process. I think a survey is a good, another part of that. It's both getting opinions and it's also educating people as to what's being looked at. I think the content of that survey needs to have some more specifics in it than those
Yep.
kind of generalized
so, too.
questions we did at that first meeting.
Yep.
And perhaps the specifics can be taken from some of the things on that list, you know, do you object to cutting junipers within 5 feet of your house, and that type of thing. People are more likely, I think, to respond to that than generally, or are you willing to take some low cost steps, that type of thing. And as to that list, and I agree, the simplicity and limiting it to a few things is desirable. That was always kind of the anticipation of those of us who were working on the WY task force, that we would end up with a small number of things, perhaps focusing on the 5-foot zone. And that list that was handed out there of possible measures was just, it's the cafeteria menu from which you pick a limited number of things that you think people can realistically do. So that ultimately what we would reach would probably be a limited, small number of things simplified off that list. So my timing is, let's, I think, follow the community wildfire protection plan, do a survey. But maybe then have a workshop on where we stand after having done that input, and start the process. And I think there should probably also be a general referral to each of the boards and commissions, because it says ramifications of all kinds of them. For example, the EDC may want to opine as to whether it should really apply to downtown businesses or not. The EAB may have things to recommend on what tree or plant species, you should touch or not touch it. So I think that should also be part of the process. When we get to that point, ask each of our boards and commissions if they have input as well. But I think the process needs to get started, and I very much agree with President Williams that if we don't do at least some retroactive measures, we're really not accomplishing anything. Just adopting the state code, however you want to characterize it, put part of it in our code, refer the rest, or whatever other towns do. Adopting the state code itself doesn't advance the ball.
Thank you. Trustee Williams, then trustee Brackey.
One of my worries from the start was that we would get a huge backlash from people who were concerned about retrofit, who thought that we were overreaching or that we might impose really egregious requirements on everyone. I think largely thanks to Planner Rajiv, we were able to dodge that bullet, at least at the first community meeting. When I've spoken with people about this, one of the reassurances I've tried to offer was my best read of the sentiment of the board, so that I could reassure them that we as a group were not, at least at this moment, intending to put massive requirements on everybody that were of our own making, almost instantaneously effective, and it would be extremely expensive with no help. So the way that I've said that is, I think what I've heard so far is that we wanted to listen to everyone. The community meeting was a great step. Surveys are another good step. I think there was also discussion of visiting with the HOAs. So if we did at least modest roadshow of a couple of HOAs, I think that could help. I've also said, I think we want things we believe to be really minimal, not looking for a long list of really difficult things, but also very clear that we want to give people plenty of time to do this, and that we'd like people to get as much help as possible. And one of the things that I heard at that meeting was it might be financial help, it might also be physical help. A volunteer brigade or the fire district offering some assistance, whatever it is we could get, especially people who would find some of the physical work daunting, some help, I think would be really good. So I think we're on a path to giving people those kinds of assurances. I would stick with it. I do think for staff direction that there's this priority of figuring out how we're going to implement the basic code that is required of us. And I think that does largely depend on our collaborating with other jurisdictions that are facing the same difficulties about clarity and about timing, about other things. The second matter is this whole retrofit, and I kind of think that one is a secondary question. It's worth talking about now, and it's worth giving people assurances now, but it doesn't have the same deadline of March and June that the other one might. In that community meeting, I jotted down a whole slew, 9 ways that we could ease this burden on everybody. That we could pick a few, or we could pick one, or we could give people time, or we could give people help, or we could give them menu options. I had 9 of those ways that we could make people's lives easier and still make some progress. I also jotted down 9 issues that people brought up over the course of all of this. And you all heard exactly those same issues, but I think it's worth keeping that log of people's worries about insurance and worries about renters and worries about the perimeter and all the things that complicate all of this. We're not going to be able to resolve all of them, but keeping a log of those that we've heard as we undertook this very deliberate listening, I think is definitely worthwhile.
Thank you, and maybe you can send your logs on to Planner Richie and staff.
Happy to.
Yeah. Trustee Dachi?
Yep. Well, first I want to thank everybody, staff and trustees for facilitating this town hall. I know I couldn't be present, so I appreciate you being there and hearing back from the community. I think it's always important to hear back from as many people as possible, which is why I do support the online survey. And the way I look at this from a pragmatic approach, we have about 5 or 6 months left before the end of our term. And so I'm seeing an opportunity here to use the end of this year, this last quarter, to facilitate that survey and gather as much information as I can. From my understanding, it doesn't sound like we're going to get the wildfire protection plan before January. So I thought that would be a good goal for Q1 of 2026. And really, that's kind of our last quarter as this board sits. And I think it would be really great, I agree with Trustee Browning, to reach out to the community and communicate with the community post adoption of this wildfire protection plan. I think that's really key. I think we do need to hear from our principal referral agency, which is the Fire Protection District. And then I think, probably not this board, but the next board is going to be probably one of their first priorities, sounds like the adoption of this code. So that could be all of those 3, the survey, the community outreach, the adoption of the wildfire protection plan, could be part of phase 1, including the adoption of the code. And then maybe phase 2 would be the retrofit, but I don't think I'll be here for phase 2. But I would love to support phase 1. And I think we can easily begin this process this quarter and quarter of 2026.
Thank you. And I agree. So I wrote down a couple of notes. I think that the survey is a great thing to do, and what I would be interested in knowing is what would people find least objectionable when it comes to retroactivity? What would be the easiest thing to start with? I'm also interested in the relationship between HOAs and the code. The state code, seeing as how HOAs are tiny governments, and yet we can't regulate really what the HOA rules are. So that would be interesting to find out, because since we have such large HOAs and Lions, if HOAs would be willing to kind of be the school principal a little bit about this, it might help us go farther faster. And then someone asked at the meeting, are you gonna have this on the website? And that makes me wonder whether staff thinks that a whole section of the website about wildfire resiliency would be good to have.
I agree about that.
Yeah, and just anecdotally, in talking to my neighbors, they were like, yeah, I would totally do that if somebody else would come and do it. Like absolutely, no problem. And then as I was walking down the alley, there was a wooden fence with firewood just stacked against the wooden fence, and just. So, yeah.
So you mentioned the HOA, I wearing president's hat for a little bit longer, I think. we're trying to get LVP certified as a firewise community.
Oh, you can
Um,
do that as an HOA?
yeah, I'm not sure about the financial aspect of it though, because the last information I had was you had to spend X number of dollars per house doing certain fire mitigation stuff. So I'm still in the city phase of trying to figure out how to do this. But the one thing I am really pushing for, because I think it's a huge issue. I heard from some people up in Stone Canyon at the quarterly that we had are these fences. These fences which are literally diffusers for all the fires
Yeah.
traveling along the way. So I've got feelers out for alternate types of fencing. The one I came up with and I posed it to wildfire partners. Trek, you know, the Trek deck that you have,
Yeah.
you can have fences made of that. But I immediately asked wildfire partners,
Wouldn't they just melt?
obviously they don't ignite as quickly, but I don't know how they burn. I don't know if you have
Sounds
any
toxic.
information on that.
It's an improvement, but it's not a solution.
Yeah,
Well, and there's, having done some research, there's three classes of composite decking, and there's class A, B, and C, A being the most fire resistant.
okay. Well,
So,
that's good to
and
know.
then there's actually videos online, you can go watch, and they'll burn A and a C and, yeah, so. And I just noticed, cause when I built my deck, I did A just cause she live in a fire prone area, so.
So my point is that in saying that is the HOAs are getting very conducive, if they haven't already, to do something cooperative with the town on this.
Or maybe, yeah. Perfect.
And I was just gonna add, yes, I mean, what we heard was education and incentives, to keep it simple. Along that lines, and somebody, I don't know who said this, but somebody, and this is where I think the CWPP would be of interest, hopefully to identify our greatest risk areas. But somebody said, you know, really the biggest risk areas are permanent areas of town.
Yeah.
And that really, it's very intuitive, and I was like, of course, but it really makes sense, I think. So I hopefully, well, we'll see what the CWPP says, and hopefully it'll identify where our greatest risks are. Because it does seem to me that's probably the area we want to protect, because, you know, whether it's Corona Hill or Indian Lookout, or probably not out east, just because the predominant winds go there. But that's where I'm interested from an education perspective. Where should we focus in on trying to fix things? Of course, we've been doing Martin, that's town property, but should we look at other private properties and figure out where the priority should be?
And how can we work with the county about the open space?
And open space, yeah.
Okay. Does that give you enough direction?
Yes.
Think so, pretty good.
Does that give you too much direction?
We have it.
Okay.
I will say, as the time, with a little different trustee Getty, I would like to see this board take up the limited retroactivity, whatever we would approve, at the same time we apply, because we approve the code. I think they go together. The overall education effort corresponding to that. I think that's something this board should have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
for sure. Great, thank you. So let's move on then to discussion direction on newly enacted federal regulations regarding wireless communication code. Attorney Dittman.
Thank you so much. So, this is actually about state regulations were recently enacted. Last legislative session in Colorado, HB 25-1056 was enacted. This was a bill that my law firm lobbied heavily against as a further erosion of local control over wireless facilities. As you may remember from the past in discussing these issues, there's an extensive number of federal and state laws which restrict our ability to regulate wireless communications devices. Everything from a small cell up to the giant macro towers have some sort of restrictions around them in terms of what we can and cannot do. This bill in Colorado made this infinitely worse for us in some ways. What it did, it took a remedy under federal law called deemed granted, which basically means if you don't do something quick enough under the shot clocks, or which are now been shortened also in Colorado, the industry can just go build those facilities without even asking the local government to do that. No building permit, no street closure permit, no land use permit. It's deemed granted upon failure to act in under the shot clock. which is either 150, 90, or 60 days, depending on what the facility is. That's one thing this statute did. And the other thing it did was it made it pretty clear that for certain types of facilities, regarded EFRs or eligible facilities requests, which are modifications to existing sites that don't have a substantial change. That's a very technical term under the federal law. Under the Colorado law now, you can build that without a permit. Even if you did act within all time frames, you can just go do it theoretically under the Colorado law. But further, and this is how bad this bill was written, further on it said it wasn't intended to, take away any generally applicable health or safety standards. So, that's a long way of getting around to the state law is really bad. And our law firm has been working with a number of jurisdictions now to kind of blunt some of the worst impacts of this. The biggest one is just making sure that even if an applicant doesn't require a land use approval to do a modification to an existing facility, they still need a building permit and a street closure permit if applicable, and making sure that's very clear in our codes. Because under state law, there's at least an argument they don't need that. So that's one change we're doing. The other thing we're doing is, updating the shot clocks to reflect the new values, and adding in the one good thing that came out of that state law, which is the ability to toll the shot clock under state law, for significant local projects, including housing. And so if the planning staff's tied up with a significant housing project, then they can toll the shot clock, basically pause it, while they work on that project. And so this is just really a compliance, with that state law, trying to preserve what local authority we may have. We've been doing this now for some time, starting in the spring with Boulder. I think we've probably done 7 or 8 jurisdictions now. So what we're looking for is authorization to move forward with that. The good thing about Lions, we did update our code fairly recently, I think 2002. So it's not terribly out of date as we've seen in some places, but there are those kind of minor changes we'd like to make sure that if someone did come to town looking to modify an existing site, that they would have to get, again, a street permit and a building permit before they could do that.
So, what direction exactly are you looking to the board for? Just to continue?
To draft a first.
Yeah, we're looking for direction from the board to draft the ordinance, one, and take it to PCDC for a recommendation, because this would be a change to the zoning code, and so it has to go through PCDC first.
Got it. Okay, what do we think? Would like to start?
I haven't agree with that. I mean, anything that gets us back the most control we can get back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we need to do that.
Anyone opposed? Okay, there's your direction.
Excellent.
Thanks. Thanks for doing the good work on this. I know you all worked hard in this legislation. I think, I know CML did too, and you win some, you lose some.
Yep. And unfortunately, there's bad stuff happening on the federal level now we're working on. So, and the wireless world is rarely good news. So.
No end to the hard work. Okay. Let's move on then to our last item, which is discussion direction on the regulation of natural medicine businesses within the town of Lyons.
Yeah, so this is part 2 of my show tonight on regulatory compliance and reaction to state laws. And so, as you may know, in 2022, a proposition was passed by Colorado voters to allow natural healing centers and natural medicines to be used. This is typically considered, mushrooms. And this is different from marijuana in many ways, in that with marijuana, jurisdictions have the ability to opt out of marijuana, or to limit the number of licenses, for that. Mushrooms kind of works the opposite of that, whereas they assume everybody can do it, and then it's up to the local jurisdiction to put regulations in place to say where, how, when those can go. And so we've heard now a little bit of interest in people looking to do natural healing centers in Lyons. And so we need to put some regulations around, where those can go in town. The state does have a pretty comprehensive regulatory scheme now for licensing these things, just like they do for marijuana. They're supposed to be telling us if someone has, starting the state process, and, that hasn't happened. No one's gotten to that point yet, to my knowledge. But I think it is really time at this point to start putting regulations in place. Again, zoning regulations as to where this use may be allowed primarily. And so we're looking for authority to do that. We have done this for a number of jurisdictions now. My colleague Betsy Stewart actually probably did the first natural medicine ordinance in Colorado shortly after enactment of that, because there was one of our jurisdictions which there were some people eagerly looking to do a natural healing center. And so we do have some models to work off of. In addition to getting general direction in terms of drafting this, some additional direction on where and lines we should be looking at to put natural healing centers, I think would be useful. That way we're not kind of guessing. But again, this is a zoning regulation. It'll go to PCDC first if he authorizes to do it, and then back to the Board of Trustees.
Thank you. It brings us some interesting questions regarding, assuming the board would want to move forward with something like this. Where, like, what actually is a healing center? Is it somebody's house? Is it a commercial facility? Is it, it's kind of like, how do we even tackle the zoning issue without knowing what a natural healing center is or looks like?
So a natural healing center would be a commercial entity where people would come in and be able to do psychedelics under the supervision of a person. And so that is what natural healing centers, are.
So like. Yes, those who have already taken action on this, it follows very closely like marijuana retail actually, but it's usually commercial zones. So many feet from a school because they do have the product on site. It's similar to that in most places.
What are the tax revenue implications of these?
Do you know tax revenue on this, Brandon?
I don't have that answer for you at this point, but we can bring it back if it does come back. I haven't dealt directly with the taxes yet, but I assume it has an excise tax on it at the state level.
But healing centers can't do retail sales, so.
No, there's no retail,
No.
they're all industry, but they have the product on site.
Yeah. But it's a service also though, so you're paying for a medical service. I'm not sure if that's even taxed.
Practitioners are required to be licensed.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a pretty comprehensive state regulatory scheme around this now. There were 2 state laws passed after the proposition, which kind of got all that up and running.
It is, yeah, they're kind of paralleling it to the marijuana, you have to have state license and a.
Yep.
Local.
We're talking about natural healing centers and mushrooms
Yes,
in
sir.
is the same thing.
Yes.
Same thing. Yeah, it's a place where you can do psychedelic mushrooms.
Somebody goes in and puts sage smoke under my nose.
No,
No.
it's where you eat a mushroom while they put sage smoke under your mouth.
So trustee, someone goes to a certified person who helps them get into an altered state to help them deal with whatever issues they're wanting to talk to. Yeah.
It's DORA regulated. The practitioners are DORA
Yeah.
regulated, so LPCs, MSWs, physicians,
They're
all of these folks have to be licensed to offer this. But I think we will see a lot of therapists eventually offering it. So any place you have a therapy office, you potentially eventually have someone who's licensed for psilocybin.
And we're not allowed to take product from the healing center. You have to use it on site. The regulations do separately allow for home use, so you can grow it yourself. And there's regulations on how many, how many mushrooms you can use, or it's really a plot of space, 12 by 12 feet, it looks like. It's a big plot for mushrooms, and you're allowed to give some, to other people that are under your care. But in terms of the natural healing center, you can't buy product and take it home like, medical or retail marijuana.
So let's say a therapist decided that they wanted to offer this modality, would they then have to get licensed as a natural healing center?
Yeah.
Yeah, through the state and through the local jurisdiction.
And through the local jurisdiction.
Yes.
So we would know, so any therapist in town, so if Mayor Pro Tem decided she wanted to start offering this modality, she would come to the town, she would go to the state.
Mhm.
And then she would go to the town and say, I would like an application to be.
It'd be like a
amended.
zoning application, so I mean, making sure that you have the proper zoning and then a business license. I'm not sure to what extent that people are like doing like a retail marijuana license. It's more so that it complies with the zoning where you're allowed to have it.
Okay,
The minimum distance from any school or licensed preschool is 1,000 feet, right?
That's the general rule. You can,
Unless you said it differently locally.
yep.
My initial inclination in looking at the zoning map is to focus on the commercial eastern quarter, which is more than 1,000 feet, I think, from any school. You look at that on the map, and also it could use some economic boost for people in the Orchid offices there. Pretty much a wasteland now, and anyway, that's just when I saw the zoning in the 1,000 feet, I pulled out the zoning map and said, worth. To away from the schools, probably because it's not revenue producing other than property tax, it's probably not something we really want to encourage downtown. You know, there are service businesses down there already, we don't want stories, that's just kind of initial reaction, we gotta look at these.
well, and I'm of two minds of this because I can see your point. And, if there are therapists who have offices in their homes, and I think there are a lot of them. Do we want to exclude them from being able to offer this modality? I mean, I don't think about it as a place where people are gonna go and party. Like, it's not like that. Although I'm sure some people do, but that's not the purpose of this, and if you're gonna be licensed to offer it, you're certainly not gonna make it into a big party, right? So I'm not sure. I'm not even sure it needs to be 1,000 feet from schools. I mean, if it's not used recreationally and it's being used therapeutically, then why would it need to be 1,000 feet away from schools? I'm not sure I get it.
So are you suggesting that we would open it up to residential areas then?
Well, people have therapy offices in residential areas. People
Well,
work out of their homes.
therapist offices anywhere in the state of Colorado are actually functioning in R1. Or, most of us are online at this point as opposed to in person, but it's, yeah.
And you see the therapeutic benefits as a professional?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, this is,
Okay.
I mean, I've been involved with this at the TED level. Yeah, for 7 or 8 years because TED as an organization took a lead on this TED international. And I think a lot of us feel like the practitioners doing this ought to be psychiatrists and pastoral counselors, which is my degree, because of the spiritual nature of it. This has always been done by spiritual guides, whether you're talking about peyote or coyote or particularly when you look at its greatest impact, it's probably in ayahuasca, and ayahuasca only when practiced within the context of spiritual community. That's why a lot of people are going down to Peru, although at this point, there's a lot of shysters in Peru that will suggest they're offering ayahuasca. But the positive results of it are greater when they are done from that spiritual perspective. We lost that battle a long time ago. It became apparent that it was going to be anybody pretty much in any state licensed was also going to be able to apply to do psilocybin or MDMA. There are a lot of centers doing ketamine at this point also, but the efficacy of it is out of question.
So you would compare this to an experience with ayahuasca?
I would, no, it's different from ayahuasca, because ayahuasca is within a larger based context besides just the mushrooms themselves. I would say this is something beyond the MDR.
Oh, this would be the next step,
Right,
next level.
because the MDR gets both sides of the hemispheres of the brain functioning. And this actually is able to get functioning at both the level of the midbrain, so the hippocampus, the amygdala, as well as prefrontal cortex, but particularly helps people to access the right hemisphere of the brain. Whereas like a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy is totally focused on the left hemisphere of the brain. The very simple bottom line is, I have clients I've been working with for a long time whose progress in traditional psychodynamic therapy was moved rapidly forward through 3-4 guided, which just means the therapist is there. Usually it's with headphones, there's music, there's an education session that takes place beforehand. They are remaining there after, and as required by state law, they have a session, at least one session afterwards that processes that. Most of them are doing that at this point in a 3-hour session after it's taken effect. Other things that are very consistent are you cannot drive your cell phone. And anyone you can drive your cell phone after a colonoscopy. That you are not, you're not in a position to be able to do that. But there's no question, has been for quite some time, that it is very, very positive. That's, you know.
Well, I appreciate this very informative answer because it would be really difficult for me to decide on a residential, like opening up to residential without hearing.
Yeah, there's no way either Kathy or I are gonna become licensed in it because I don't think we need to be doing that in Stone Canyon.
Here's a question or, suggest an answer. I don't think our current R1 zoning allows it. So it's something we need to look at. as
Yeah, I
part
would
of this
imagine it
process.
does not. I mean, my
It's
assumption is
It's not listed under the principal or conditional uses, nursing facility or constant care facility, that's not gonna do it. So it's something we need to look at if we
Yeah.
decide we want to allow it in residential areas.
Do you want us to prep an ordinance to go to planning commission?
Yeah, I would love to get the planning commission's input on this. And. Yeah,
Yeah, I would actually, as a therapist, be in favor of it not being approved in R1.
interesting.
I believe it needs to be in a place that's dedicated to it. If Kathy or I, the one decide to become licensed in it, we likely will do it in Longmont or in Boulder. We'll not try to do it on our own.
Well, I can imagine you wouldn't want to hire people wandering around trying to.
I mean, it's just, it's not, you know, it can
What can happen in your home?
it's just,
Yeah,
it's not.
liability.
I don't think there's any therapist that wants that to be happening in their own house.
That's.
And you said it's typically a 3-hour session?
No, 3 hours, and it's often 8 hours. The 3-hour session is after, not same day,
I see.
but a 3-hour session to process it. I find it takes, with my clients, 4 individual sessions separated by a week, just to process each one.
So
Knowing often we'll be doing 4, so. Yeah.
So we were talking about this at agenda setting and I suggested that the board do it together.
Sure.
Is that how we go out with a bang?
Therapy.
Bring that blacklight posters.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so yes,
knowing the state, it is allowed,
Right.
we need
Yeah.
to regulate, you want us to move forward with bringing you something, okay, all right, we will move this forward.
I would just urge everybody with this in mind, take a look at the zoning map.
Oh, yeah,
It's not allowed in R1. And
you don't
whether
want
it belongs
to.
downtown or not, there's not many places.
No,
There's not many zones that,
Downtown.
there's not that
Energy.
many.
I think Eastern Corridor
Yeah.
actually would
Yeah.
make more sense for us.
Yeah, I agree.
and maybe CEC.
And if I can make a suggestion, I just, based on my ignorance around this therapy, I just don't know how well informed or educated the PCDC is. Is it
Yeah.
possible to, Mayor Pro Tem Williams or somebody there who can kind of.
Brandon, yeah, well, I mean, if she would like to, and it's
Right.
available, and there's also plenty of background information about it too.
Yeah, we can, when we bring it to PCDC, we'll have a much more comprehensive presentation on this. There's just an initial discussion whether we should spend time on it, basically. But as we've done, my colleague Betsy Stewart's done this in multiple places now, and so she'd probably be a good person to bring to PCDC if she's available. If not, I have all her materials, so we can, we can do much more comprehensive for them.
Yeah.
And if you want somebody to if they have questions or you want somebody there to talk about it from therapeutic perspective, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you.
I guess the question, Brandon, is if we should decide we don't wanna fool with this, where does that leave the town?
I can do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't do it at all, I think people could go anywhere. I mean, essentially, it states more or less creative use by right.
Hey,
Even in zoning districts that wouldn't allow it.
Correct, yeah.
Did we ever wrestle with this question on the marijuana side? And us with.
Yeah. Marijuana was a little different though, because it was more you had to opt and you had medical, you had to opt in, and then you could opt out of retail, and so you had a lot more choices there.
I'm asking a little different question.
Yeah.
Has anyone come to us asking for on-site retail authority?
For mushrooms,
For much.
it's not
No, for
legal.
marijuana.
Oh.
Have they ever asked for a license, or is either our retailers or others looked for on-site hospitality for marijuana?
Oh.
We banned them,
Right.
we passed an ordinance that banned them.
Yeah.
We had a few inquiries about it.
Okay.
Early.
And we decided we weren't in it.
The board passed an ordinance back then that prohibits marijuana social clubs.
Okay.
Oh, I'm pretty sure there is one in my neighborhood.
I was gonna say the town is actually a marijuana social club.
And we have had inquiries about this.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
So, yeah, we
Just
need.
for those who weren't here, I went on the board then, I've just moved to town, but there was a lot of
Consumer
controversy on both sides of the marijuana hill where it should be located, and things that started out and had to be moved because people didn't want to go to schools, and it was a big deal. Laverne was highly involved in it.
I saw the shooter moving back there.
Mhm.
I'm sure lots of these issues have been dealt with already, but my reflex is that we have a pretty high concentration of marijuana-based businesses in the eastern corridor. And to push this to eastern corridor feels like we might be increasing that concentration to our detriment.
The commercial eastern corridor, actually, I don't think they're anywhere.
Identity.
Not in the commercial industry.
Well,
It got
There are 4 businesses, not all of which are in town, not all of which are what you would call commercial eastern corridor, but they're 4 marijuana-based businesses to our east.
Right.
Yeah.
That would have been true of Zengold's not there now.
And the next one's down in hygiene.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you have your direction.
Okay,
All right.
we'll get working on that.
Okay, let's move onto trustee reports. Trustee Williams, would you like to kick us off?
Happy to, our entire planning commission meeting was spent prepping for the wildfire resiliency community meeting. So not much to say there other than to underscore what planner Richie said, which was that a majority of the planning commission seemed very skeptical about retrofits. It wasn't a perfect consensus, but with the exception of one person who very discreetly shared their interest in retrofit, most of the planning commissioners were very skeptical about imposing much, if anything, as a retrofit.
Thank you.
I encourage one or more of them to join for the community meeting. I don't think any of them were able to attend, because unfortunately, I think they would have heard that there was more openness in the community than there was in the committee meeting.
Thank you. Trustee Burning?
No, either the, EDC or we have met since our last meeting, so nothing to report there. I will say as to the EDC that I saw it in the administrator's report, and Mayor Rogan and I have talked about it briefly, that I had already mentioned to them, getting them involved in a discussion of potential how the Sundance Festival would be used to bring more business to Alliance, including potentially the expansion of short-term vacation rental. Adapting that program, I should say, to fit that, and as well as how to coordinate that with local businesses. So that's an item they're gonna be looking at, I think, in the future. I have 2 agenda requests, one of which we've already discussed between Mayor Rogan and I and some of the staff. which is to have at the board level, and I don't think it needs to be long, at least some discussion of the status of the Boulder County tax assessors, willingness to address, issues on property tax assessments. There are a number of properties in town that have been misclassified and, so in some cases as residential instead of, commercial. And they did it for years. At this point, after some time of knowledge of the Boulder County Tax Assessor's Office, have been paying far less than their fair share of taxes. And I think there have been staff discussions of this going on for months, and I haven't seen enough concrete answers from the assessor's office at the staff level. I think it's time the board had a discussion about that, or maybe invite somebody from the assessor's office. And secondly, I would like a future agenda item to discuss what, if anything, the town could do to provide assistance to people who may have lost their SNAP benefits, WIC benefits, and LEAP, which is the Energy Assistance Program benefits, particularly the latter. Such as, for a possible example, a moratorium on utility cutoffs for those who are having to choose between spending their limited resources on food or utilities. There's some issues, obvious financial issues with that, where you do people that were already delinquent. And Clerk Vasquez already brought that up, but I think if this situation drags on longer, that people are losing their SNAP and WIC and LEAP benefits, I hate to see us cutting those utilities. So I'm not sure how much we could do. Maybe 2 weeks from now, it'll then all that stuff will be resolved. I don't know, but I would like for us to at least take a look at that, discuss it.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I ain't got nothing.
Right. Easy enough.
Yeah, I grew up in Appalachia.
Trustee Lowell.
Policy board met on the 21st. As you can see, most of their effort was put into this B city resolution. We had a good turnout for the fire mitigation event this past Saturday up on Millie and Prospect and Ewald. I think it would be very easy to do similar type deals in some of the other communities. Not necessarily those that butt up to Boulder County Parks and Open Space, but maybe just cooperative efforts in the neighborhood. It went very well. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Trustee Dottie.
I will be so brief. There will be a student advisory commission meeting this Thursday at 3:30 here at Town Hall. It's very exciting. And the Arts and Humanities Commission will meet next Tuesday at the library at 4:30.
That's great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Trustee Everett?
Sustainable Futures has not met since our last meeting. We have our last meeting had one attendee, I think I mentioned last time, so.
Yeah.
The meeting shifted a week earlier now, so we're meeting this Thursday. The focus of the agenda is gonna be work on the 2026 work plan. And then as town administrator mentioned, there's the drop off leaves and stuff, drop off on Saturday. And on an agenda item, I don't know if this makes sense, but when we were talking about when we were at the session last Thursday for the wildfire, you know, lots of people were talking about, and we've talked about it before, insurance cancellations. And I don't know if there's anything that the town could do or educate. It just seems like it's a big issue for the town. I don't know if there's anything we can do or.
I think we can just direct people to other resources that can help, like the last resort insurance, but I think that, you know, it would make sense for there to be a little part of the website. You know, we talk about the wildfire resiliency website, a little part that talks about insurance and where to go for help.
I think it's just gonna become more and more.
Yeah.
This Thursday, your meeting,
Yeah.
Okay.
forevermore or
No,
just
just
once?
this.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so HHSC has not met yet. We are meeting, I believe, this Thursday or next Thursday. I attended the CML executive board meeting 2 Fridays ago. And Governor Polis joined us, which was a first.
Well,
Kind of walking into the lion's den there for him, but it was a really productive meeting. I'm joining the policy committee for CML and I wanna, extend the invitation. Anybody who is a member of a CML community can join the CML policy committee. And the policy committee looks at pending legislation and provides a suggestion to the executive board on whether to support it, oppose it, or ask for amendments to it. So it's interesting to see how that sausage gets made. So if anybody's interested, let me know. I attended the ADU financing roundtable last Friday, in Lafayette at Willoughby Corner, which is beautiful up there. And I think Planner Richie and I will, bill you in more, but it was interesting. Vale has a revolving loan fund. Of course, Vale can afford a revolving loan fund for ADU construction. But there are also other funding opportunities, you know, maybe some of the affordable housing tax can be used to fund some sort of revolving loan fund for construction. Anyway, there's a lot of interesting ideas that came out of that. So, we'll
Thank
fill
you.
you in.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And that's all I got.
And send that will be the next week, this Friday.
Yes, there is another roundtable about home ownership this Friday that Senator Bennett will be attending. Maybe. Okay, can we please have a summary of action items?
yes, okay, from the workshop, I have, staff was asked to determine how to notify CDPHE of the gray water ordinance. I think Aaron Kaplan's going to look into that. A future agenda item on construction hours is to be reviewed. Next, I have staff is to contact the contractor and the homeowner regarding the jackhammering and LVP. Next, we are to have a draft ordinance on construction hours, same thing. Next, ordinance 1199 passed on second reading. Ordinance 1200 passed on second reading. Ordinance 1201 passed to second reading. Ordinance 1203 also passed to second reading. The B City resolution will be on the 1117 agenda. Regarding the wildfire resiliency code, the board would like, the board direction was a survey, public education, update the website. Next, staff was directed to draft the wireless code ordinance that will go to the PCDC first. Staff was also directed to draft the natural medicine ordinance, which will also go to the PCDC first. An agenda request to discuss the status of the Boulder County Assessor's willingness to address issues with misclassification on properties on Main Street and other sites. And another agenda request on what the town can do to provide residents who have lost SNAP benefits regarding shut-offs.
Thank you. I have just a couple more, but they're little just details of what the town clerk said. You do want an update on the hydrant study as that comes through, discussions with the fire department regarding filling trucks. We have, in regard to wildfire, I also have find out specifically what wildfire partners' plans are for financing next year. Consider a general referral of our WRC to all boards and commissions. Possibly look at putting together a roadshow to the HOAs. Get there to educate them and get feedback. Find out what control do HOAs have over the legislation or not. And keeping a log of concerns expressed by residents regarding the code. And then the only other one I had was in regard to, as a follow-up to one of yours, Trustee Hamrick, in regard to.
The insurance resource to the website.
I have, yeah, that's all under our website. Thinking there was something else here, but maybe not. That's what I have.
Great, thank you. Attorney Devon, anything else?
Not really, just keep an eye on other statutory municipalities for the wildfire update. And then I already sent in the updated gray water ordinance to Dolores.
Great,
Thank you.
okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Let's vote.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thanks, everybody. And look at this, 9:36.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.